You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Well, good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. In preparation for tonight's show, I was literally all over the place, as the old saying goes. I went back to my old standby, newspapers.com, looking for just old pictures that I had not seen before, had not shared with you, the viewers, before, and stumbled across a couple of newspaper ads and articles and pictures, of course. And so it kind of led me down a path, if you will, that, as usual, twisted and turned and went all over the place. So there's no real theme tonight. We're going to talk about some old car dealers that used to be in Rocky Mount many, many years ago. I stumbled across references to another restaurant that I had never heard of before. Maybe some of you have. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. And I stumbled across a really old picture that Charlie Killebrew had taken of downtown Rocky Mount. I'm guessing back in the late 40s, early 50s maybe. And we'll get to that a little bit later on the show too. But if you haven't been outside, it's cold out there, so just stay inside in front of your TV and watch Wayback Wednesday. We'll try to stay warm together because it's cold outside and getting colder as that time wears on. I mentioned that there were some car dealers. You know, there's been so many car dealerships in Rocky Mount over the years, and we've talked about most of them at one time or another. And some of the ones we're going to talk about tonight we've mentioned on prior shows. But what I stumbled across here that really got me, that piqued my interest, if you will, in these particular car lots was, if you remember a couple times last month, we talked about a restaurant that was over on South Church Street, kind of catty corners across from the train station, across the street from the old Mark's Tire, and then the future home for the fire museum. That restaurant there, right beside it, was a car lot. In fact, over the years, there was more than one car lot there. And so I stumbled across the address first. The address was 413 South Church Street. Well, immediately that rang a bell. Wait a minute, we were just talking about something Church Street last month. And so I went back and looked at my records from last month's shows. And sure enough, 411 was the address of the Coastal Cafe on South Church Street. Well, this car lot was 413 South Church Street, literally right next door. So anyway, I was kind of curious about when the building was erected, who occupied the building over the span of time that it was there. And of course, it's not there now. The building's been long gone. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump into this. Let's go ahead and put up picture number one. This is from 1938, and it's actually a newspaper ad that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, October 19th, 1938. As you can see there, it's the announcement of the grand opening of Hoggard Van Motors. Now, we've talked about Hoggard Van Motors in prior shows. If you watch the show regularly, you know we've mentioned Hoggard Van Motors. But you see there the address, 413 South Church Street. And like I say, this was literally right next door to the Coastal Cafe. And so when I saw the address, I was scratching my head. I said, okay, I should remember that area. I'm old enough to have been around when that building was still there. And I seem to have a vague recollection of the building. But I was really curious to see if I could find a picture of it. I didn't know if I even had a picture. I've probably got in my possession now in a digital format in excess of 5,000 or 6,000 pictures. Many are from old newspaper clippings. A great many are from the Charlie Killebrew collection. That's online, and I found some at various other websites online. But I really didn't know if I had a picture of the building where Hoggard Van Motors was located in 1938. But you see, this was the grand opening, so there was nothing there prior to this. This was the first building that was erected there in 1938. And there was actually, I went back to the 1936, I think, Rocky Mount City Directory, and there was a house there. There was actually a residence there. I believe it was an elderly lady lived there by herself, if I recall. But in any case, the house was torn down, of course, and this building was built. And in 1938, Hoggard Van Motors moved in and had their grand opening. And you see there, they were a Hudson motor car dealer. Okay, keep that in mind. Hudson Motor Cars. And again, October 19, 1938 was when this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Okay, so the next thing I did was went to the Rocky Mount City Directory. You've heard me say before, I've got a collection of these things that I've found online and downloaded to my computer in digital format, but I don't have every single year spanning the years that I do have. The closest thing I had in 1938 was actually in 1940. So Lee, if you would, put up item number 2. And in 1940, the Rocky Mount City Directory in 1942, this was a listing. And it's interesting because I don't know why this thing blows these things up whenever I put them up here. It does not do this on my office computer, but for some reason here, when we load up on the screen, these are screen captures. I've captured this out of the city directory and saved it as a JPEG or a picture image. And for some reason, when the machines here in the studio put these screen captures up, it blows them up. I'm not sure why, but in any case, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you can get it back at a normal size, Lee, but if you can't, it's just a listing for Hoggard Van Motors, and it lists the principals. Mr. Lyman B. Hoggard and Mr. John A. Van Jr. were the owners, if you will, principals. And by 1940, in addition to being a Hudson dealer, they were advertising that they sold Hudson and Oldsmobile motor cars, sales and service, Amico products, and of course the address was 413 South Church Street. Their phone number, interestingly enough, was, there you go. That's the way it looks on my computer at my desk. I don't know why it blows up when we put it on the computer here at the studio. But anyway, the phone number was 21, just 21, not 44 or anything, just 21. It was a phone number. And so, like I said, I was always curious about who it was that was behind Hoggard Van Motors, and there you go, the two owners, Lyman Hoggard and John Van Jr. And they were, as I said, a Hudson and Oldsmobile dealer in the 1940s, late 30s, early 40s. Okay, let's move on then, Lee. So also in the same 1940 city directory was this ad, number 3, if you would, Lee. And this actually lists, there you go, Hudson and Oldsmobile sales and service, and you see the address, 413 South Church Street, and again the phone number 21. So now they've been established, they've been in business for a couple of years now, and the dealership is actually, apparently, by all indications, doing quite well. Number 4, Lee, if you would put that up, this is another ad that appeared in 1941 in the Rocky Mount Telegram. And it says, all cars alike, not the way I hear it. Drive a Hudson. You'll find it's different in 5 important ways. And it goes on to tell all the points of interest about a Hudson. Look at the prices. Brand new automobile, $795. In 1941, you could buy a Hudson, brand spanking new from Hoggard Van Motors for $795. And actually, you could finance it if you needed to. You could put $265 down and pay $6.57 a week. You could finance a car and pay for it on time if you couldn't afford to pay for it outright. So, but you know, something else that caught my eye about this. I want you to notice from this picture, that car, that's a 1941 Hudson, of course. Notice the body shape there, the body style. Kind of sleek, kind of elegant, certainly a rounded over body style, so typical of cars from the 1940s. But this was a Hudson. So then the very next ad I found was from a few years later, 1945 to be exact, item number 5 if you would, Lee. And this ad appeared showing a 1946 Oldsmobile, okay? So the 1941 Hudson and the 1946 Oldsmobile had a very similar body shape. The hood was a little more pointed on the 41 Hudson than it was on the 45 Olds, or 46 Olds, excuse me. But very similar body style for a lot of cars in the 1940s. As is still true today, quite often automobile manufacturers kind of, I won't say they copy, but they tend to have cars that look very similar to other manufacturers' cars, I'll put it that way. And you see that quite often. Another neat thing about this particular ad, it looks to me to be a photograph. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people standing around this 46 Oldsmobile. This is not the best picture quality in the world, but they are. And again, this appears to be, anyway, an actual photograph, which is kind of rare. This picture you're looking at here now, this was from 1946 also, and this was actually a picture I had and didn't realize. When I was going through my archives of old pictures, I stumbled across this one. So, and then of course, this same picture was in the 1946 Rocky Mount Telegram. 1946, April of 46. This picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and I had saved it from a prior visit to this newspapers.com website. But anyway, you see there up on the banner across the top of the building, it says Hoggard Van Motors. And they were actually, of course, sold trucks too. And it says these 2 Federal trucks, that's the brand name of the truck, Federal truck, were delivered to premium distributors who were the local Ballantine dealers. And of course, this just a real good picture here. I wish it was a little more of the building in view as opposed to just the trucks, but of course the focal point of the whole ad was the trucks that they were delivering to these local Ballantine dealers. But this was the front of the building in 1946 when it was still Hoggard Van Motors. Now, in 1958, there was a change of hands, if you will. Mr. Hoggard, I'm not exactly sure what happened to him, but in any case, he was out of the picture. And item number 7, if you would, Lee, in January 12, 1958, this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram announcing the change of our name from Hoggard Van Motors Incorporated to John Van Motors Incorporated. And at this point, you see they're advertising as being Oldsmobile Sales and Service. And below that, it says our 20th year of continuous service. So keep in mind, the building was erected, the grand opening took place in 1938. This is indeed 20 years later, and they're in the same location, same building, 413 South Church Street, and they changed the name from Hoggard Van Motors to John Van Motors. I don't know, honestly, if Mr. Hoggard passed away, or if Mr. John Van bought him out and just took over the business. I don't know. I did not research Mr. Hoggard. I was curious momentarily, and I got sidetracked by something else and never pursued that to find out why exactly they parted ways. But in any case, in 1958, it became John Van Motors at the same location, 413 South Church Street. Okay, moving on then. Also in 1958, this ad appeared, Lee, item number 8, if you would. And this is a really neat ad, but I don't think this is a photograph. It could be. I'm not going to say it's not. It looks to me to be an artist rendition of 3 different Oldsmobiles for the 1959 year model. Keep in mind, this is October of 1958 this ad appeared. So just like today, the 2024 year model cars are already out. Not every model of every manufacturer, but you can get a 2024 year model car now. And so back in 1958, the same thing was true. I think we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Good evening, Randy.
Hey, Bob, how you doing, buddy?
All right. My father bought a 59 Oldsmobile new from John Van Motors. He bought the Dynamic 88 model 4-door sedan, white with the blue, white and blue.
Oh, wow. I bet it was a pretty car.
Great car, great driving, just cruised really well.
Right.
Trunk space, you could carry, boatload of stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
And we ate at the Coastal Cafe next door routinely there on some Sunday dinners after church.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. This was, as I said, a well-established dealership. By 1958, it had been in operation 20 years. They were the Oldsmobile dealer in Rocky Mount. And apparently the Hudson they'd either dropped the Hudson line or they were no longer being made. I'm not sure when Hudson ceased to be an available automobile choice around here, but in any case, by 1958, John Van Motors was the Oldsmobile dealer. And so But as I said earlier, I think this ad is an artist rendition. Now, certainly, if you remember back a few pictures ago, we showed you that one that looked to be a photograph from the early 1940s. So certainly it was possible to take a picture and have a picture as opposed to an artist rendition or artist drawing. And this may be, it's really hard to tell, but it just looks to me to be more of a drawing than an actual photograph. Okay, so I mentioned that I had looked to see if I could find any other pictures of the building itself. And I did come across one more from a Rocky Mount Senior High Knocker, Rocky Mount Senior High Knocker yearbook. And this was actually a picture that I had got, I don't know, some time ago, within the last 4 years of doing this show anyway. And so item number 9, if you would, Lee, this is a picture after the dealership became John Van Motors, and you see there, it's a little better shot of the building there. And I'm not exactly sure. I did not date this picture when I saved it originally. I recognize the format of the ad. I know it's a High Knocker ad. And since they switched over in 1958, judging by the hairstyles of these young ladies, I'm going to guess it's early 1960s. There's no picture of a car so you can look at and identify that way. So I'm purely guessing here, but I'm just based on the style of the ad and everything else, I'm thinking it's a 1960s picture, early 1960s. But you see there, John Van Motors, and same address, 413 South Church Street. Okay, looks like it's time for our first commercial break. Lee, bring it back to me. When we come back from the break, I'm going to show you a few more ads. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call first. Hello, caller, you on the air? Hello, Bob, you there?
Yeah, the girl on the right, the dark hair.
Right.
Josephine Van. Her father was John.
Okay.
She's a class of 66.
Okay.
Rocky Mountain. And I don't know, I seem to think she did very well in the Rocky Mount beauty pageant one year. I'm not quite sure.
I could see that very well possibility. She was a pretty lady, pretty girl. Yeah. You don't know the other one?
Don't know the other one.
Okay. All right. So if anybody knows anything about Josephine Van, where she's at, if she's still around Rocky Mount, let us know. And if you can identify the other girl, we'd love to hear from you too. Okay, Bob. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, let's take that break now, Lee. When we come back from the break, we've got a few more pictures to show you, a few more ads, and then we'll jump into yet another car dealership and an interesting connection between two different car dealerships. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
Today, having the right healthcare plan tailored to your specific needs is vital to your peace of mind. The question is not if you will need the coverage, but when. And when that time comes, you want to be prepared. With the rising cost of medication, medical procedures, and doctor visits, you should know which is the right insurance plan for you. From life insurance, affordable health care, to Medicare, there are a lot of insurance options available, and choosing a plan can be overwhelming. Having Gus Tullis as your insurance professional on your side will give you peace of mind, because you will know you are covered with the insurance that meets your needs.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
We're back. Before we go further into these pictures and ads and so forth, Lee, I want to go back. If you would, put up item number 9 once more. And I'd like to zoom in on these two young ladies and see if we can get a good shot. This is a pretty clear picture here, and I think we can probably zoom in pretty close in, and maybe somebody will recognize this other young lady here on the left and can identify her. I'm not sure. She looks familiar to me, but she's considerably older than I am, or would be. So I want to venture a guess as to who she might be. There you go. So can you zoom in a little bit more? That may get blurry if you try to zoom in too far. So I don't know. As far as you can go with a zoom? Probably, it may be. There you go. Okay, and then pan to the right a little bit. Or there you go, like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, she looks vaguely familiar, but she would have been quite a bit older than I am. So if anybody recognizes her, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. Again, this was from, probably 1966, assuming that Josephine Van was a senior in this picture. We don't know that, but certainly in the 1960s at a minimum. And if she was a senior in this photograph, then it would have been 1966. So, okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 10. This ad appeared September 28th, 1966 in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and it is another John Van Motors ad. And the neat thing about this ad to me is that this is actually a photograph. It's not a drawing, it's not an artist's rendition, it's an actual photograph. And so, and this picture doesn't do it justice. The original was actually much clearer than this. And sometimes when I screen capture these images from the newspapers.com website, for one reason or another, they just don't come across very clearly. But the original that was in the newspaper in 1966, when this ad came out, was really much clearer. You could actually see the facial expression of those two gentlemen standing behind the car there. But this ad again came out September the 28th of 1966. And as you see, they're advertising the next year model, the 1967 year model Oldsmobiles. And of course, you see the address, bottom right-hand corner, 413 South Church Street. So now they're entering their 30th year. Well, not quite 30, it'd be 38 in 2 more years. But in any case, from 1938, when Hoggard Van Motors opened up at 413 South Church Street, there was continuous operation of a car dealership there, at least up until this year, 1966. Okay. As I was bouncing around looking for pictures and information and trying to map out and figure out who occupied that building, I stumbled across another ad that kind of took me for a bit of a loop because I was not expecting to see the future owner of one car dealer actually working for another car dealer. But in 1948, and we're going to bounce around a bit here because this is another car dealership altogether, 2 different ones in fact. July the 1st, 1948, this ad appeared, and it was actually a help wanted ad. You see this says, wanted a man to become a truck salesman and specialist. Only a man of unquestionable character and habits considered. Excellent opportunity for a man who wants to make selling his lifetime work. Contact J.C. Fryer, who was the sales manager at Allen Mims. Now, of course, in 1948, Allen Mims was a local Ford dealer. J.C. Fryer, for those that, if that name sounds familiar, in later years, J.C. Fryer would open up the local Volkswagen dealership in Rocky Mount, J.C. Fryer Volkswagen. J.C. Fryer Volkswagen was located over on North Church Street in the building that's currently occupied by Wholesale Paint Center. That was J.C. Fryer Volkswagen dealership back in the 1960s. So, like I said, I was a little bit surprised that J.C. Fryer had previously worked for Allen Mims. And I guess in hindsight, when I think about it, it's probably not so unusual because it actually happened quite a few times where someone would go to work for a car dealership and get some experience, get some skills, get some knowledge of the product or whatever of the line, and then choose to either change jobs over for someone else or take the plunge and go to business themselves. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in just a few minutes, because it did indeed happen again. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Item number 2, November the 30th, 12, item number 12. November the 30th, 1959, this article appeared, and you see the headline, New Volkswagen Agency Opens Here Tomorrow. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's a rather long article, and I forgot to bring my buddy Holly glasses with me tonight, so I'm doing this with eyeballs that are straining. But I do have a copy here in my hand, so this is highlights here. A fully equipped sales and service center for Volkswagen cars and trucks will be opening here tomorrow to serve Rocky Mount and eastern North Carolina. The new concern is J.C. Fryer Motors Incorporated, located at 945 North Church Street. Again, that's the current location for Wholesale Paint Center. By the way, Wholesale Paint Center has been sold under new ownership now. Okay, it says J.C. Fryer, who's been in the automobile business for the last 26 years, is the owner and manager of the Volkswagen Company. And he goes on to talk about, his affiliation with different manufacturers and so forth. The end is kind of interesting. It says, a native of Florence, South Carolina, Fryer came to Rocky Mount in 1940. He first went into the automobile business in 1933 and was affiliated with Allen Mims in Rocky Mount for 21 years. Fryer is a former president of the Rocky Mount Civitan Club and has also been active in the Chamber of Commerce, the Red Cross, and the Episcopal Church. He is a veteran of naval service in World War II. So how about that? J.C. Fryer was a World War II vet as well. And like I said, this article appeared November 30th of 1959 when J.C. Fryer opened up the local Volkswagen dealership here. Okay, number 13, if you would, Lee. This is just an ad that I thought was kind of neat. This appeared actually the same day. It was on the same page, in fact, as an article I just read. And it's just an ad saying, the door is open. J.C. Fryer Motors announces the grand opening of its Volkswagen headquarters, and everyone's invited. And, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air.
All right. You were talking a little bit ago about the Oldsmobile name and its association with General Motors. And before the name of Oldsmobile came to be very commonly known in America, those cars were known as Rios, R-E-O. And those three initials, R-E-O, the O stood for Oldsmobile. That was a man's name who was involved with General Motors in starting the development of the Oldsmobile car in its early days. It was known as a Rio, R-E-O.
I've got a picture of a Rio somewhere in my collection of pictures. I sure do.
Well, that's what the issue about Rio means. That's the three initials for the man who was responsible for the development of the Oldsmobile for General Motors.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay. All right. So, if you ever seen a Volkswagen key, they were very unique keys, and it was, something interesting about this ad. It actually showed a couple of Volkswagen keys there. But anyway, I'll draw your attention to the bottom right-hand corner of this ad. In addition to the world-famous Bug, the Volkswagen Bug is known all over the world now. They made what they call the micro minibus or micro bus, and they made that micro bus in several different renditions. There was a 21-window version, a 23-window version. I'm going to show you one in a minute, but I read an article today, in fact, that said recently a 23-window Volkswagen micro bus recently sold for $300,000. So if you've got one or know somebody who does, they've got some value there now. Okay, let's move on. Item number 14, January the 16th, 1964, sadly, J.C. Fryer passed away very suddenly, very abruptly, very unexpectedly. And this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, as I said, January 16th, 1964. And it says, J. Chase Fryer, well-known Rocky Mount automobile dealer, died unexpectedly early today in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he was attending a dealer school. The news of Fryer's death was telephoned here early today by an associate, Bernice Smith. Okay, Bernice Smith was O.B. Smith. His name was Owen Bernice Smith. Okay, keep that in mind. Bernice Smith, who had been attending the school with Fryer. Death occurred about 7:30 this morning. Fryer, who was 53 years old, was head of J.C. Fryer Motors, Volkswagen dealers. And it goes on to talk about Mr. Fryer again and his wife and so forth, his family. Said he was affiliated with Alan Mims, of course, for 20 years before going to business himself a few years ago. But like I say, very abruptly, sadly, J.C. Fryer passed away while out of town on a business trip. And at the time, he was there on that trip and accompanied by Mr. Bernice Smith, okay? Number 15, Lee, this was the actual obituary itself that appeared in the paper the very next day, January 17, 1964. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, funeral services for J. Chase Fryer, 53, well-known Rocky Mount automobile dealer, will be held Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. He died unexpectedly in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Pallbearers, Melvin Knowles, Robert F. Thompson, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is the Robert F. Thompson who run Thompson's Nursery down off Pine Street over there for many, many years. Anyway, it goes on to say Knox Porter, and then Bill McCauley, Howard Strickland, Marshall Barney, again Bernice Smith, and Alan Mims. Alan Mims was one of the pallbearers at Chase Fryer's funeral in 1964. Okay, so that was in 1964. I was doing a little more digging, looking to see what I could find about the Volkswagen dealership, about J.C. Fryer in general. And I stumbled across this picture from 1967, 3 short years after J.C. Fryer passed away. Item number 16, if you would, Lee, for our viewers. This is a photograph showing some gentlemen standing around a Volkswagen motor, and I'll read the caption to you. It says, left to right, O.B. Smith, president of J.C. Fryer Motors, J.E. Provo, automotive instructor at Northern Nash, Dr. Kenneth D. Hall, principal of Northern Nash, and Heinz Zahner, Volkswagen representative. In 1967, Ferris Motors donated a Volkswagen motor to Northern Nash High School for the automotive class to learn how to work on Volkswagen engines. And this wasn't the only time they did this, by the way. They did it once more for Rocky Mount Senior High. I got a picture coming in a minute where they did the same thing again for Rocky Mount Senior High. But I thought it was interesting that after J.C. Fryer passed away, O.B. Smith, who would later become the owner-manager of O.B. Smith Oldsmobile, took over J.C. Fryer Volkswagen. So and that's him down to the left. That's Mr. O.B. Smith, who was at this point in 1967 had become president of J.C. Fryer Volkswagen here in Rocky Mount. Okay, let's move on, Lee. The very next year, 1968, December 22nd, 1968, this photograph appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and as you see, it's a groundbreaking ceremony, and it says J.C. Fryer Motors groundbreaking, participating in the Friday groundbreaking for a new building to house the local Volkswagen dealership here. Left to right, Jimmy Jones, sales manager, Capital Car Distributors, Albert Rabel, president of Contractor Modern Builders, O.B. Smith, president of J.C. Fryer Motors, Mrs. J.C. Fryer, who was the vice president of the company, and Harvey Ewan, who was vice president for Capital Car Distributors. So they began breaking ground December 22nd, 1968, on a new building, new lot, new location for J.C. Fryer Volkswagen out on 301, okay? Again, December 1968. Very next picture, Lee, item number 18, almost a year exactly, well, not quite a year, November the 18th of 1969, they had the ribbon cutting of the new dealership. And the caption reads, Rocky Mount Mayor John T. Menges, with scissors, cut the ribbon at a grand opening ceremony Friday morning at the new Fryer Volkswagen dealership building on US 301 bypass. Shown left to right with the mayor are Rudolph Teicher, general manager of the South Atlantic region, John C. Shiflett, district parts manager, James F. Sharp Jr., general sales manager, Mrs. Jane Fryer, secretary and treasurer of the Fryer Volkswagen, Bill Jackson, who was the zone sales manager, and O.B. Smith, president of Fryer Volkswagen. I never knew Mr. Smith himself. I knew his son, Owen. Sadly, Owen passed away a few years ago at a fairly young age. He was in his 50s when he passed away with cancer. But this was the first picture I had seen of O.B. Smith to know who I was looking at. And the resemblance between him and his son is uncanny. His son looked just like him. I mean, it's unbelievable how much those two gentlemen looked alike. Father, son, it's understandable, but they did indeed look very much alike. Okay, Lee, move on. October 1970, item number 19, I mentioned that J.C. Fryer Volkswagen had given away a Volkswagen motor to Northern Nash High School, and they turned right around and did it again, and this time they gave it to Rocky Mount Senior High, gave one to Rocky Mount Senior High. The caption reads, "Engine donated to Senior High. Vincent J. Colombo Leff, principal of Rocky Mount Senior High School, accepts a Volkswagen engine donated to the Senior High Vocational Educational Department by Fryer Volkswagen of Rocky Mount. Shown with Colombo are left to right, Emmanuel Thompson, vocational instructor at Senior High, Harold Rowland, Fryer Volkswagen service manager, and O.B. Smith, president of the local Volkswagen dealership." Again, I never knew that O.B. Smith, who would later run O.B. Smith Oldsmobile, also was the, I won't say owner, I think he was probably technically president of J.C. Fryer Volkswagen, but indeed he worked there, and after J.C. Fryer passed away, O.B. Smith took over the reins, if you will, and ran the company for Mr. Fryer. I mentioned earlier that if you had a 23 window Volkswagen microbus, or even probably a 21 window version that's been restored or in very good condition, you've got literally a gold mine in your hands. Item number 20, if you would, Lee. This is a picture I stumbled across. This is a 1960 23 window Volkswagen microbus, and one very similar to this recently sold for $300,000. You know, these things are just iconic. This is, you know, Volkswagen made a camper version of these things too. In fact, they made several different versions of a camping microbus, equipped with, you know, all the amenities of a little mobile apartment, if you will. And they were very popular in the 1960s, even into the 70s. I knew a few folks that had these things, but if you could get your hands on one now, particularly one that was in as good a shape as this one is, you really have something of some value. Okay, Lee, let's bring it back to me. It's time for our next commercial break. When we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about some car dealerships and some owners and some moving around of people and places and things. Show you a few more pictures, and a really neat picture that Charlie Killebrew took sometime back in the 1940s. We'll get to that shortly. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
Today, having the right healthcare plan tailored to your specific needs is vital to your peace of mind. The question is not if you will need the coverage, but when. And when that time comes, you want to be prepared. With the rising cost of medication, medical procedures, and doctor visits, you should know which is the right insurance plan for you. From life insurance, affordable health care, to Medicare, there are a lot of insurance options available, and choosing a plan can be overwhelming. Having Gus Tullis as your insurance professional on your side will give you peace of mind, because you will know you are covered with the insurance that meets your needs.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
And we're back. During the break, I got a text from Randy Harrell, a good friend out in Tennessee, who was able to come up with a name. So Lee, if you would, put item number 9 back up just briefly for our viewers. That's a picture of the two cheerleaders from Rocky Mount Senior High in the 1960s. Bob called in, identified the lady on the right, or the girl on the right, as being Josephine Van. Randy says the girl on the left is Martha Kinchelow. Martha Kinchelow. And so for some reason, that rings a bell with me. Like I said, she looks awful familiar. I don't think I ever knew her personally, but there's something about her that just looks familiar to me. Maybe somebody knows her by her her married name, but she apparently was Martha Kinchelow back in the 1960s, 1966, apparently, when this picture was taken. Okay. All right. So we were just talking about, after J.C. Fryer passed away, Bernie Smith, O.B. Smith, took over J.C. Fryer Volkswagen and ran it on behalf of J.C. Fryer for his wife, and was there for a number of years. But in 1975, I ran across this ad that appeared in 1975, I should say, from the Rocky Mount Telegram, March 27, 1975, excuse me. Lee, if you would put up item number 21, this newspaper ad appeared. It says, closeout sale, O.B. Smith Oldsmobile. So keep in mind, in 1970, O.B. Smith was running Fryer Volkswagen. By 1975, he had started his own dealership. And if you look at the bottom of the page, look at the address, it's 413 South Church Street. So, what was Hoggard Van Motors and then John Van Motors in 1974, or 75, excuse me, had become O.B. Smith Oldsmobile at the same location. So I'm not sure, I was not able to directly tie a continuous connection between the time John Van Motors was there in the 60s and the time that O.B. Smith took over the dealership, the Oldsmobile dealership and franchise here locally in the 1970s. And if I had to guess, I would say probably John Van Motors was there up until O.B. Smith took over, because John Van Motors, if you remember, was the Oldsmobile dealership. So by 1975, O.B. Smith has now become the owner of O.B. Smith Oldsmobile at the same location where John Van Motors was previously located. And that's something I didn't remember. My earliest recollection of O.B. Smith Olds was out on 301. In fact, Lee, if you would, put up item number 22 for our viewers. Item number 22 is an article that appeared in Rocky Mount Telegram, October the 5th of 1977. And this was when O.B. Smith Oldsmobile opened up their dealership out on 301. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but it says O.B. Smith Oldsmobile is beginning its third year in a new location and in new facilities. Smith bought the dealership in 1974 from J.A. Van Jr. Well, there's answered my question earlier. He bought it from John Van, who had operated it for 36 years on Church Street. Seeing the need for modern, expanded facilities, Smith purchased a plot of land on US 301 North for the new location. The 12,000 square foot structure is on 3 acres of land and offers complete sales and service of both new and used cars. So, indeed, O.B. Smith bought the Oldsmobile dealership from John Van after it had been run over there at the Church Street location for 36 years. So there was a location, a dealership there at that location for at least 36 years. Now, I don't recall when that building was demolished. Maybe someone does. If you do, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. But obviously at some point that building at 413 North Church Street, as well as the restaurant right next door to it, the Coastal Cafe, were both demolished. There's nothing there now, of course. It's a grassed area. It's right across the street there from the Fire Museum on the corner of Hammond Street and Church Street. We got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Randy, don't be real surprised. J.C. Fry worked for him. Robbie Robertson worked for him, who later opened the dealership in Nashville. And Joe Pacellis worked for Allen Mims, who later opened up the one in Greenville.
How about that? Well, Allen Mims trained a lot of dealers, didn't he?
He also brought Bernie Smith in, and Bernie Smith had the Volkswagen a while also.
Right.
J.C. Fryer.
That's right.
And Allen Mims did all those. He was quite a character, quite a man.
Yeah, sadly, I don't think I ever had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Mims, but I've heard an awful lot about him, and all of it good.
He's a delightful person, man. Wonderful person. Also the mayor of Rocky Mountain one time.
That's right. He was indeed. Sure was. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Great.
Have a good evening. Okay. It's obviously these car dealerships over the years did, in fact, change hands sometimes. They brought people. Another call. Let's get another call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Hey, Randy.
Yes, sir.
O.B. Smith actually was a part owner of Fryer Volkswagen, especially about the time they moved from Church Street to 301. I think Miss Fryer actually had the controlling ownership, but he had the managing ownership. And I think that he owned 49% of it about the time they moved to 301. But I worked there in the parts department for 4 years.
Did you? Okay.
Mr. Smith was a fine man.
Well, I never knew him, but I knew his son Owen, and thought a lot of Owen, but I never knew his dad.
Yeah, well, he was a fine man, but he was part owner, and then I left in 60. I left in 70.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened after that, what happened then. But I know up to that point he was up to a 49% owner.
Okay. I figured after J.C. Fryer passed away, Mr. Smith must have had some kind of ownership. I wasn't sure how the ratio was, but I figured Fryer's wife would have had some, obviously, being the wife of the owner. And so that makes sense. What you're saying makes perfect sense.
When I went to work there right after Mr. Fryer died,
mm-hmm.
and I think it was Mrs. Fryer and then their son Jerry and Mr. Smith. I think they were the three.
Okay.
Ownerships.
Okay.
And then that changed somehow or another after they moved to 301. I don't know all the business aspects of it, but I know he owned more of it after they went out there than before.
Well, I didn't realize when J.C. Fryer died, he was older than I thought he would have been. In fact, the picture of his wife in that groundbreaking ceremony, and then later with the ribbon cutting ceremony, she appeared to be, I won't say an old lady, but certainly up in age. And so I guess she was probably ready to get out of it anyway,
She probably was.
Yep.
Okay, Randy, thanks a lot.
All right, buddy, thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right, so like I say, 1977, they opened up the new dealership. And so the 1978 Oldsmobile cars were being sold in a brand new location there on the 301 bypass location. I don't know, as I said earlier, exactly when. I may try to see if I can find sometimes when very prominent buildings in downtown Rocky Mount were demolished, Charlie Killebrew would be on hand and take pictures of the demolition. I know, for example, when the Rick's Hotel was torn down, Charlie took a bunch of pictures of that. I've got those pictures. We shared them on the show in past episodes. There were when Hyman Battles House was torn down, for example, there were pictures of that. So there may be some pictures out there somewhere of the demolition of 413 South Church Street, where Hoggard Van Motors, then later John Van Motors, then later O.B. Smith Oldsmobile was located. But I've not seen any, so I will kind of see if I can dig around a little bit and find some. I'm just really curious to see at what time, and my guess is probably they were most likely both demolished at the same time, the 413 and 411, where the Coastal Cafe location was. Okay, while I was bouncing around looking at different things, I stumbled across this picture, and before I even read the caption, I recognized the building, at least I thought I did. Lee, item number 23, if you would. April 1964, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram with two gentlemen, a father and a son, who were local businessmen in Rocky Mount. And it says, oh, got a call, let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, there was a picture one time on an old Rocky Mountain high knocker about the John Van or Hoggard Van Motors dealership, where there was somebody who had been the victim of being polio, needed to have an automobile that was an automatic transmission vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hoggard Van Motors or John Van Motors was denoted as being the person who made arrangements to bring the first motor vehicle, passenger car, into Rocky Mount that was an automatic transmission for the need of that person.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Wow.
I don't know what year it was in, but I think there was a picture of that dedication in a Rocky Mountain high knocker.
Okay. I'll see what I can find out. I've got some old Rocky Mountain high knockers in digital format. So I'll see what I can find, see if I can find that article, that picture, whatever. And you say you think it was Hoggard Van Motors that supplied the car?
It was that motor. It was that motor. That dealer's affiliation that was what came out in the high knocker about somebody. I think he was standing there with crutches and thus being the victim of polio. And they got a motor vehicle into Rocky Mount that was an automatic transmission to accommodate that person.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm making some notes as you speak, so I have something to look for when I go digging and doing my research. But I'll see what I can find out, and we'll share it on the show.
Goodbye.
Thank you, buddy. Okay. All right. So this picture appeared April the 12th, 1964. And as I said, when I saw the picture, the building itself really kind of jumped out. I said, I know that building, I know that building. So I read the caption. It says, Mickey Dawson Jr. and his father, M.P. Dawson, have opened up their new office at 149 North Franklin Street for the M.P. Dawson Agency and Dawson Appraisal Company. The 52-year-old agency was in the Sagamore Club building at 146 North Main Street for 18 years. The new building has a flat sloop roof and exterior of modern paneling, old brick, and tinted glass. The interior of the 1,200 square foot building is paneled with walnut. In addition to the private offices for the father and son partners, the building has a reception room, restrooms, and 2 other offices. 4 parking spaces for customers are behind the building. Okay, so the more I look at this building, I've been in this building, I know I have, and sure enough, when I went and looked at the address and did a Google search, Lee, put up item number 24 for our viewers if you would. This building has been torn down and no longer exists, but it was on the corner of Franklin Street and Thomas Street, and right there where that parking lot is. When I went in that building, it was Mayor Fred Turnage's office. That was the mayor's office in Rocky Mount for a number of years. And I never knew that prior to Fred Turnage getting it, that Mr. Dawson, his son, had the building. Apparently they may have even had the building built. But in any case, like I said, I remember going in that building. I had to go see the mayor for something. I forgot what it was now, some kind of promotion, something going on Rocky Mount. And I went in that building, and I remember it being really, really nice on the inside. But so anyway, that's where it was, 149 North Franklin Street. Building, as I said, is long gone now. There's a parking lot there. So anyway, I mentioned real quickly, Lee, we're about to run out of time here. I ran across another restaurant that I didn't know anything about. Maybe some of you remember this. Number 25, Lee, if you would. This picture shows a lady, Miss Ruby Hooks. Ruby Hooks, restaurant proprietor on the US 301 highway bypass. displaying a 31-pound cantaloupe grown in her garden. It says Miss Hooks has more large melons, but none quite as large as this one. So, it says she's a restaurant proprietor. So I said, okay, well, where was her restaurant? So I went doing some digging. Item number 26, Lee, Rocky Mount Telegram, September 16th, 1962. This ad appeared, and her restaurant, come to find out, was known as the Patio Restaurant. It was on 301 Bypass. It says complete dinners for $1.25. And you see down at the very bottom down there, her name, Ms. Ruby Hooks, Hooks, proprietor. So, I wasn't exactly sure where this was, so I did a little more digging. Item number 27, Lee. This ad appeared January the 31st, 1963, and it lists daily luncheon specials at the Patio Restaurant. And can we get that up, Lee? Number 27, there you go. Down at the bottom, it says, orders prepared to take out. Out Hammond Street, cross the river bridge, turn left 1 block. Okay, so that's directions how to get to the Patio Restaurant. I don't recall there being, I guess that might have been Westmount Drive, I'm guessing. It says across the river bridge, but it doesn't say across 301. Of course, in 1963, 301 would have been in place then. So I'm not sure exactly where this place was, but in any case, Ms. Ruby Hooks owned the Patio Restaurant and ran it in the early 1960s. And as I said, this was one I was not familiar with. I don't know how long she was there, but I never remember hearing anything about it prior to stumbling across this ad. Okay, we're almost out of time. Lee, real quick, let's go to number 29. I just want to share this with the viewers before we go off the air here. This picture was one that Charlie Killebrew took sometime in the 1950s. I'm not exactly sure when. 29, one after this one. That's 28 there, so let's go. There you go, right there. It's a neat old picture here. You see Planters Bank there across the railroad tracks. It'll be People's Bank. Further on the far left-hand side of the screen, back in the distance there, would have been the First National Bank, Rocky Mount. But this is Sunset Avenue approaching Main Street, early 1950s. And the caption says it's an undated photo, so we don't know exactly when Charlie Killebrew took this picture, but he was credited with being the one who took the picture. Okay, Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, that's going to do it for us. We've run slam out of time. I had a few more pictures I wanted to get to, and we didn't get a chance to get to those. I'll save those and bring them back next week, and we'll share those with you. Thanks so much for those who called in and shared your thoughts and your memories with us. Always good to hear from you. Appreciate your input and your contribution to the show. Thanks again. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.